Hey guys,
I'm Hallee,
and I'm Jamie.
and this is Literal Nonsense.
Hey guys,
Hey.
welcome back to Literal Nonsense Podcast.
Episode 15, what we've all been waiting for.
I mean, yeah, it's
what
crazy.
I've been waiting for.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I was just
This is
thinking
why the podcast was birthed.
it was, and I was just thinking this, and this is what I wanted to say. We haven't talked about what we thought about any of this yet, like you and I. Like, I have no idea how you feel. Like, obviously, other episodes we've read ACOTAR and Crescent City twice now. So we've like discussed like everything.
Multiple times.
And yeah. And so I feel like the podcast was almost like a third time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Refreshing. So yeah, so I'm like really excited about this because we really have no idea. Okay, so before we even get started, yeah, we've been waiting for this. This is why we started the podcast. So many exciting things. And so this part, as we've mentioned a million times, but in case you're just tuning into this episode, we're going to be covering part 1 of this book. It's split into 3 parts. And so this part, we're covering chapters 1 through 27, pages 1 through 268. And it's part 1. It's called The Drop. Okay, great. So already intrigued. So what are we expecting from this book before we even go into it? What were we...
I honestly have no clue. I mean, I was mad excited when the book came out, and then there was a lot of coverage about how the book sucked.
Yes.
And I feel like online it's like very negative. Like people are rating it like on the lower scale of all of SJM's books. I've only known one other person who's read it like personally, and she said she liked it better than the first Crescent City.
Yeah, I'm interested. You mentioned that last time, and I'm interested on that stance. Like, I know Helena's reading it, and she's like, yeah, I haven't even gotten through it. Like, she's still reading it. And she started
Wow.
it when it came out.
Shit.
So
So
I'm
that's
like,
like 5 months ago.
right. Like, and we've been
6 months
busy
ago.
since, you know? So, yeah,
Interesting.
so it's interesting. I will say when chapter 1 got released, that hooked me immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, obviously, I don't know how the end of the book goes, but for what we've read so far, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, like I like it so far. Like I'm really hoping it takes off,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't
Agreed.
know. It's like she has a lot of room that she could do a lot of stuff with. So
She does. And so I guess let's just dive into what we read so far and do a little deep dive. And so the book begins with Lydia, the Hind, Daybright, whatever you want to call her, begins with her point of view. So this chapter, I remember reading it, I was like, fuck yes. Like, I was just like, she's sitting there and she's like, what was the first line? Hold on. It's actually, I was like, wow, way to hook me, SJM. Oh, yes. The Hin knelt before her undying masters and contemplated how it would feel to tear out their throats. I was like, okay, I'm into it. So that was great. And so then we also, in this chapter, learned that King Morven and the Autumn King denounce Rune and Cormac. They're like, yep, they're no longer our sons. I mean, Cormac's dead, so like, gee, way to really
yeah,
spit on his grave, buddy. But
seriously,
uh
I
also
felt
don't
bad.
I did feel bad, but I'm also like, do I believe them or are they just like they have to do
They
that, you
have to
know?
do it. Yeah,
Because I don't trust the Autumn King, like not in a bad way,
no,
but
not
like
at
so
all.
he doesn't like him either,
He's
so
he's a little tricky.
he is a little tricky. And then we also learned that 1,000 mystics are hunting Bryce through the universe.
That's like that was bizarre. I felt like that was a little bit extra.
I agree, but I'm also like they honestly haven't been able to find the homeworld all these 15,000 years.
Yeah,
Like they know it's Prithian, you know what I'm saying? But like they can't find it. So like now it's kind of like two birds, one stone, like find her. Like even they were saying everyone's kind of speculating that she ended up there. They're like, she's probably there.
yeah. But the thing is, we also don't know the name of the planet that Prithian is on.
Very valid point.
Like
That is
Prithian is
true.
just the island.
Right. It's like Crescent City.
You know.
Like it's like Pangea. You know, it's
Yeah.
like right. And even
So
the continent's called the continent. So it's like, what?
yeah, like there's so much of that world that we also don't know.
Yeah, that is
We
very
don't know
true.
Reese's last name.
Which I think
Like,
we're going to start diving into that. I have a feeling,
I hope so.
And so also Rune is ignoring the shit out of Lydia because he's pissed. Which again, I get it, Rune, but also at the same time, like, buddy, you can't. You knew she
Yeah,
was in a high power position
exactly. And you had made that point, and you
with the
were
harpy.
like, yeah, like she asked, like, oh, if I was someone so horrible as the harpy, like, what would you do? And he was like, oh, it'd take me some time to adjust.
Like, I mean, I guess this
Well, this
could be
is a
considered that,
it's
but
a
you're
rough
really,
adjustment.
yeah, it's like, it's, he doesn't make it feel like it's just adjusting.
Yeah, no.
He makes it like he hates her fucking guts.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
that's
he
what's going
does.
on in like Crescent City world.
Hmm.
I'll mention this a few more times, I'm sure. Once this book got going, I was very much so like, bring me to the Prithian chapters. Don't really care what's going on in Crescent City.
Hmm.
Um, like yeah, it was fine. Like I'm the information being said there, like we need to know.
Hmm.
But I was like, just get me back to like the other chapters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't like while we were reading, I wasn't as captivated by what was going on in Crescent City because I think I just want to know
Yes.
about the Prithian.
Yeah. Like
Like,
how does this connect? Like you're finding out that
yeah,
information there.
exactly. So, I mean, when the point of view switches to Bryce, we find out she's in a dungeon in the Hewn City and she's with Amryn, Reese, and Az, and there's like hella tension. And um, basically, the star on Bryce's chest is like a beacon to the original world where the Starborn Fae are from, which we kind of already knew that, but this like confirmed it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about Thea and Peleus and all of that. And there's a mention of Thea's second daughter. And like when I was reading that, I was like, who the fuck is her second daughter? Like, where is her story?
Right. Right.
Um, I mean, they did deliver on that, so like that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Um,
wasn't just like
yeah, and
whatever.
it's confirmed that the Asteri are the Daglan. So when they were in Prithian, they
Yes.
were known as the Daglan, but when they moved to um, Crescent City, they like took their real name, which I that whole thing is really interesting. Can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, and also I remember. So this again is like. I guess she released the prologue in chapter one when she released it before like the
Yeah,
actual book release day.
it was like a teaser.
Um, I remember our first thought at that point was like, we're finding out, like, we find out, like, okay, Bryce, like, this is where she came from. Like, yes,
Hmm.
confirmed. We find out, okay, the Asteri are the Daglan. Like, and like, those were all things that we were like, conspiracy theorizing. And it was like, yep, you're right. And I was like, we're on page 12. Like,
Exactly. So
this is,
where is this
this,
gonna go?
right, like, this isn't the big reveal. So
Hmm.
I'm scared.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Yeah, that was interesting. That like that was just kind of like quick moves. Like that's what's going on.
Hmm. Yeah, and so what like really intrigued me, or like something that I was like, that's a little weird, was that they
Mm-hmm.
give Bryce this language pill, and then all of a sudden she's able to understand like what it is that they're speaking, and I just thought like as a writer that's a very convenient way to just
Yes.
segue the story, I guess, because first of all she's speaking like the high fae language, right? So in theory, only a few probably people in Prithian know it, given that only Reese, Amryn know it that we're exposed to. And they're just like, oh yeah, like take this pill, like you'll be able to speak our language and understand what we're saying, and we'll understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So
Like,
here's
I
my thought.
how's that available? Like, I felt like that was very
But
sus.
like, why do you even have this?
How do you have the
My
technology to have this?
well,
Because Prithian's
that's
kind of like old school,
that's
like
true too.
Stone Age compared to Crescent City.
Yeah. And also here's my thing with that I feel like okay, so you know how like Bryce in Crescent City it was mentioned that she's learned the old language of the Fae.
Hmm.
But then in Prithian, it's like only Reese and Amryn know the old language, for whatever reason. I feel like SJM could have like gotten rid of all of that and just had like all of Prithian speaking the old language of the Fae, and then Bryce and Rune being like, "Oh, we're interested in our heritage and speaking it," and then that could have
Hmm.
solved that problem.
Yeah.
Like You know what I'm saying? Like, she kind of made it like a third extra step that there just didn't need to be. Like,
Hmm.
yeah,
But
and I was
that's like what they're speaking though, right? Bryce
but
is just plooped, and that's what they're speaking in Crescent City. Is that old language?
well, there's only recent Amryn. Like, she speaks her normal Midgard tongue, and then she tries to speak the old language of the Fae, and recent Amryn are like, oh, we understand that, but like, that's not what we commonly talk here either. Like, I
Mm,
wish that like they all just talked the old language. Bryce's dad had made her learn it, and that solved that problem.
yeah, yeah. The
That,
lang-
that
yeah,
would have been it.
yeah. I was not a fan of the language, but I was like, this seems kind of like a cop out.
Agreed. Agreed. Like, yeah, it's just like she was like, hmm. Also, if she just had them talking, don't even think I would have realized that they didn't speak the same language. You know, I'm like,
Yeah,
you
probably.
almost brought attention to it where I was
Hmm.
like, didn't need to have that explained to me. But
Yeah, like that she wants to like fucking cover her tracks on, but like other things, it's just like you're left in the dust.
right, yeah, okay. And so we flash back to Crescent City. Tharian, because he declared himself to the Viper Queen, he's fighting in the pits. Adriadne,
Ariadne.
Ariadne.
Yeah, like the Greek god.
Yeah, I do not. Again, don't say his name out loudly. In my head, I say him however I want, and that's
Whatever.
not
They
correct.
call her
Anyways,
Ari anyways.
Ari, our girl Ari, and so she's also fighting in the fighting pits. She's just like being bitchy as per usual. She's like racking up like the visitors, the money. Tharian's not as eager. Fine. So now our little crew, who is Ethan, Declan, Flynn, I think Mark is there, and also our little buddy, the Fendir heir. Her name is Sigurd. Sigrid?
Sigrid.
Sigrid? Okay, I hate it. So that's what I want to say about that. I fucking hate her name. Like, I wish it was anything else, actually. Literally anything.
I feel like I've heard that name before, Sigrid.
Call her
Somewhere
Jessica.
else. Okay.
Like, I just don't like it. I just hate it. I don't know. I was like, I read that and I was like, ew, that's the name you give her?
They call
Like,
her Siggy though. That's like cute.
but it doesn't suit her.
It reminds me of the
So,
yogurts I eat. Siggy's.
I mean, right. That's
It's
also
like
like,
Icelandic yogurt. It's pretty
yeah,
good.
that's adorable, but not her. Anyways, but I digress. So all that little crew goes to like release Tharian and try to like bargain with her. Like, can we get him back? What can we do? And at this point, they're talking, and there's like radio silence from the Eternal City. They don't know what happened to Bryce, Rune, or Hunt.
Yeah.
They know they got captured. They know Bryce is missing. That's pretty much it as far as them. Um, and so at one point, we also learned that Siggy, our girl, she took the drop, but she doesn't want to talk about it.
Hmm.
Something just like was weird with that. I think we both noted it. So I was happy that we were both like, little warning flags going up. Like, what's up with that?
Yeah, but are we gonna find out about what even happened with
Well,
that? I mean, like we'll talk about it like in a little bit, but
I just don't have faith
do you
that
think it's just another like plot hole, like another?
I hope so, but I almost feel like she's saying she made the drop. I don't think that her conclusion in this part is her final conclusion
Okay, gotcha.
because SJM has issues being fucking.
Bring them back.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so
It's like a revival tour.
yeah, and I even wrote a point saying like honestly at these parts I'm already like bring me back to Prithian. I want to know like I'm already
Yeah,
hearing about the Daglin. Like I'm like keep it coming, give me the information.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it serves the point of giving us information, but I'm like, I don't care about Tharian. Like, stay fighting in your pits. Don't care.
Honestly, yeah. Like
I
as
like
I
them
think,
all,
yeah, I think
but
Theron, you're kind of like a mute point at this stage in the game.
yeah, like I'm just like, all right.
Um, yeah. Wait, so you have your book with you?
Mm-hmm.
Can you pull out the joke on page 59?
Oh my
I
gosh, of
act
course.
I actually like laughed like LOL'd out loud
I'm not surprised that you laughed by that at all.
because
Okay.
my two brain cells that were rubbing against each other were like, ha ha ha.
You're so silly. Okay. Page 59, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so they're all being tortured and they're miserable, but Rune is still a silly little guy. And he's like, you want to hear a joke? And then the prince didn't wait for a reply before he continued. Two angels and a fey prince walk into a dungeon. And then they all just like started laughing.
Yeah. I thought that was so funny because I don't know, I felt like I resonated with Rune at that moment. Like
Well, because
that's
they're
like some shit that
literally,
I would say or
yeah, they're
do.
literally being tortured to death. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, we gotta laugh,
We need some
friends.
comedic relief.
Yeah.
But at this part too, Lydia is like trying to reach Rune, and usually he like shuts her out, but because they were tortured so bad, he like fell into like this trance kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "Why don't you speak to me?" Like whatever. And I had to FaceTime you. Like when I read this, I was like, "This is
Yes.
fucking." Like he was so cutthroat. You know, he was like, "This isn't even as bad as what you did to me." Like I never want. Not that. No, I'm not. Okay, I'm paraphrasing very very generally because I don't have my book in front of me.
I'm
But
getting to like the things. Like, basically, she asks him, like, what have they done to you? And he's like, nothing you haven't done 1,000 times yourself, because she tortures people.
yeah,
And then he said, like, he was like looking at her, and he was like, the most beautiful female he'd ever seen, a flawless mask over a rotted heart.
yeah.
And then,
Like he's really just being mean.
yeah, like he just hates her. He really hates her.
Yeah,
Which,
that made
again,
me
I don't know
upset.
if it's warranted. I don't know.
I don't know, man. Like you know she's fighting on your side, right? She has to keep up appearances. She can't like expose herself otherwise like she's really the only major player. And then we find out that like in a little bit that the rebellion like went underground. Like she's the
Yeah,
only one still trying to keep things going.
right.
So I don't know. I feel like he's being like extremely harsh. I mean, granted, maybe he's just in a bad mood because he's getting tortured to death,
You
but
know, that'll make you have a cranky mood. That'll ruin your day.
exactly. Um, but then the story switches and it's like Ethan and
Back to these
Sigrid.
clowns.
Yeah, back to like that little group. And fucking Sabine comes. Like it's like dead quiet and Ethan's like, why? He was like, where did all the noise go? And like it's like Sabine like standing there.
I'm sick of her too.
She's so annoying. But like anyways, I just like the whole interaction between Sigrid and Sabine was hilarious, and like the fact that Sigrid I think the most iconic line in this book so far, and I might dare I say before I finish the book, this is the most iconic line in the whole book. She's like, "I'm gonna piss on your rotting corpse." I was like, "Yo, this is my girl." Sigrid's got a lot of fire in her.
She does. She does. Ugh.
I was like,
I,
"Yeah,
I
stick
like
it to her."
that. Yeah, like fuck her. Like she like killed your like dad, I think, and your sibling, and like she's a bitch.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like fighting, then all of a sudden like fucking who was it, like Declan or something, like fucking shoots at Sabine and fucking
Yeah,
blows her face off, and you're like, is she dead? I was like, wow, all that and she's just dead. I was like, that was very anticlimactic, but then all of a sudden it was like, she's not dead. Like, how do you survive with your face being like fucking ripped off?
that's the issue I'm having is because she made the drop and like they could heal and stuff, and that's why I'm like not convinced about Siggy's
Hmm,
ultimate conclusion, which we'll get to because
gotcha.
oh my god, I want people to fucking just die.
I was like,
Okay.
I wish she was dead, but I wish she was dead more theatrically, I guess.
I almost
Um,
like wouldn't even care if she just like finally got what's coming to her. Like she made like one wrong comment finally, and someone's like, "I'm
mhm.
so sick of you. I'm gonna shoot you in the face."
Yeah, but I wish like someone like Bryce would kill her, you know, like say some like crazy shit right before and just take the final blow and just like
True, she
X her out,
deserves
you know what I
after
mean?
everything she deserves like a death.
Exactly. And then
Well,
also in this little part we learn of the Queen of the Sprites.
mm-hmm.
Her name is Arethes, I think.
Arethes,
Irithis.
yeah,
She's really cute. I think all the sprites are really adorable. So like I
yeah,
kind of like how she like this is like a new kind of
yeah. I
like
agree.
little addition into the book. I that was like the one that I like actually enjoyed because we don't know
Yes,
that much about the sprites, you know.
no. So I agree. I like the sprites. Give me 100 and I'm happy. You know, like keep adding them. Um, And yeah, the other three are still hanging out with the crew at the Viper Queen. So they're all around still. So I'm like,
Hmm.
cool, I want them all. And so thank God we go back to Prithian. Yay. And so Ness is described as a warrior, which we were both like, ooh, that's fun. Which she
Yeah.
is. She is. And you
Yeah.
could tell she has her shit together now. Like she's on it. Like she's composed. She's calm. Like whatever. And so there's Black Knight filling the door. Bryce can't get out. She's like trying. Okay, so the only way out is she's in the cell with all those like writhing beasts below her.
Hmm.
And she's like, fuck it, I'm gonna go down to the grate and see what happens. the beasts like stop when she's around. I don't know if they're scared or if they're just like, hey, a compadre, like we're good. I'm not really sure like why, but interesting. And there's a tunnel. So she like jumps down, goes in the tunnel. Now Nesta catches up with her. Um, and Bryce and her kind of have like a little like not battle, but like Bryce is like, you're not getting me, like I'm going this way. And they kind of like, I don't know, just have a little chase and they cause a cave in.
Mm-hmm.
So not good. So now the only way to go is forward. Um so yeah, it's interesting. I do think Nesta just seems like she's just different in this part. She's just like I said,
She's
she's
like, she's a. I feel like she's a completely different character. She
but
writes her. I don't know.
is it because she's now composed and like just back on her shit? Like I feel like we could also
Maybe.
argue that when you're depressed, you're not yourself. So like
But see, the problem is also is like I think we are so used to seeing like inside their heads and like
mhm.
being in their world. So now like seeing them being written from like a third party perspective, it's almost like when someone's telling you about like this person that like you both mutually know, but one of you knows them like a bit better,
Yeah.
and like you're like explaining like how they are, and it's like wow, I didn't get that vibe at all. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, and that was also the problem we had with Reese, right? We had this like romantic, like anti-hero kind of vibe because it
hmm
was Feyre seeing him who was falling in love with him.
yeah.
Whereas Nesta's books were like, well, he's kind of a dick. Well, we're like, well, maybe he is a dick to Nesta.
Mm, yeah, but
So
I don't
maybe,
like, and this is the thing that was going on through like the whole first part is like I don't like how they talk. Like they talk like they're fucking old English, like medieval people.
but like also they kind of are.
I know,
Which
but
I think
like,
she leans heavy on that
yeah, way too much.
because Bryce is now here.
Like something happened, and she was like, "Then you'll go forth," and I'm like, for just say you're going forward, like you're going
Right,
through the
because they didn't
tunnel.
really do that like in their other books.
No,
Yeah, I think that she's just probably leaning on it to be like,
like to really
whatever.
show like the difference between like where
The
Crescent City
worlds,
is and
yeah.
whatever. I don't know. I
Yeah,
was like, this is fucking weird.
I know. I mean, I get it. And so, I don't know. But the two of them are now on an adventure. And we're like, okay. Which I like the two of them. They'd be a duo I would put together.
Yeah, I don't think I
Um,
would have enjoyed it as much if it was somebody else. Like if it was Feyre, I'd be like, eh.
agreed. And so they're walking, they get to a cavern, and all of a sudden the Midgard worm is back.
Yeah, didn't like that.
The only part I found interesting about that was that she's like, wait, Midgard, like Midgard, which I was
hmm
like, ooh, that's weird.
Yeah,
Didn't think of that when we read the books. So that was an interesting parallel. But yeah, I was kind of like, and then they even bring up like she was like, "Oh, my sister fought it, yada yada," and they're like, "Is this the worm she fought? Is it?
mm,
Are there's there like a species of
yeah. There are
worm?
many of them.
Like is this the worm? Like, are you the one and only? Like, I gotta know."
Yeah, no, she killed the worm.
Did she? Oh, she
Feyre killed
did.
the worm,
Yeah. Okay, so it's a species of worm.
but like, yeah, I just was like, why is this coming back?
Yeah.
Why are we doing
Yeah.
a part two?
But I also think at the same time, it's like my thought process was like, oh, we could have just not had that. But to add action and stuff, I mean, she could have added other creatures,
Yeah,
you know?
I would have died
Yeah,
if it was like a three-headed dog. Oh wait, she already did that.
right. And so, yeah. Okay, so whatever. And so Nesta, at one point, you made a point of this, and I want to talk about it. Nesta mentions that Reese would want to be their High King. So basically, I know that you are like, this is support of the evil Reese theory. Now,
hmm
I'm not super convinced. We can chat about it. Just
Just
because.
the way it was worded was weird.
Okay, so I think I disagree in the sense of how it was worded. So the way that I read it when I first read it, I was like, oh, like again, we know how Nesta feels about Reese.
hmm
So the way that I read it was just her being like, yeah, he's kind of full of himself. Like, I don't know if
Mm,
he actually wants to be king or she just said it. So let me find the quote. Hold on. Oh, and Rhysand is your king, Bryce said.
hmm
Nesta snorted. He'd like to be, but no, he's the High Lord of Night Court. So I'm just like, is just Nesta being like, because she snorted. So I took that as kind of like, my brother in law would love to be fucking king, but like, I don't know if he
mm,
really would.
interesting. Yeah, no, I read it and I was like, is there
I
something else that we don't know?
Yeah, I don't hate it. You know what I'm saying?
Because like even though like Nessa doesn't like Reese or whatever, like at the end of Silver Flames, they came to like an agreement, right? And they were like chill with each other.
Well, yeah, she saved all their lives, so you'd have to hope they're fucking getting along.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. That kind of just like rubbed me the wrong way. I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
it could mean something. I mean, again, I'm glad we pointed it out because, like, it might, and I think she's gearing up for Reese to be High King. So even that could just serve as, like,
Well, yeah,
keep it
and
in our heads.
and we said that like in
Mm
whatever back a bunch of episodes when we first talked about this.
hmm. Right.
Um. So
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
I
she's
wouldn't be
gearing up.
surprised if he did become,
Agreed.
but
Agreed.
like I would hope he would like do some like resisting, you know?
Agreed.
Like, no, I don't want this role. No, but you must save everyone, you know?
Yeah, which I think that would be more on par with his character. I agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then they come to a river. Her star is like flaring and it's showing her the way. Like if there's like a
Mm.
fork in the tunnel, she like glows. Okay, we want to go this way. It's like leading her to whatever the destination is.
It's
And so
like
they
playing
get
hot and cold.
yeah, and so they get to a river and she's like it's like flaring and she just jumps in because it like
Hmm.
there's a tunnel across the river. Which even Nesta was like after the fact like, "Hey, maybe you could have warned me like we're going
But
like together. Like
but
why you
she's
just
like, yeah, but Bryce is trying to get rid of her.
I guess, but like, damn, bitch. Well, anyways, so they jump in
Dick
the
move.
river. Yeah. And then they get out of the river, and Nesta was like, okay, well, you literally didn't even have to get wet. You're an idiot. And then she's like, LOL, Azriel's here. So he's been like in the shadows the whole time, just
Hmm.
like following them. So, like, literally, he could have flown him across the river, which I thought was
Yeah.
funny. Because Nesta's now she's pissed because she's like, I'd jump in after your dumbass because I wouldn't want to like lose you.
Hmm.
And now I'm fucking wet. Like,
Yeah. Like, thanks, asshole.
I'm pissed. So yeah, so they're just trucking along, but now Azriel's in the mix as well, which I like this trio as well. I feel like Nesta makes sense, and
Hmm.
Azriel doesn't really have much going on, unfortunately. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
why not put him on a little side quest?
He's a spy master, you know, so obviously he's going to be spying.
Also true, but I also feel like like Feyre and Reese are kind of doing their thing.
Hmm.
Nesta has Cassian, but like obviously like she's like a pretty I like this role for her to like go after Bryce. And then Azrael, like I said, like he's kind of like the missing one out. So it's like, why
Yeah.
not send him?
I'm
Like I
surprised
can't
he's
see
not.
fucking Amryn doing this. She'd be like, I am not chasing after this fucking
No.
girl.
No. Aaron's too high maintenance, first of all.
Yeah, she'd be like, I'm actually not walking that much.
Yeah,
Thank
no.
you.
Yeah, no.
She's like,
um, so I've seen this online mentioned briefly, but I didn't look too far into it because I was like, "Oh, I don't want to spoil it for me." So the witches.
I like this point that you made.
Okay, so the witches, the Hind, like Lydia, and then we meet this other witch called
Hmm.
Hilda, or whatever the fuck her name
I
is,
think Hilda.
something like that.
I like
And
it. It's very
she's
Scandinavian.
yeah, she's okay. She's like she was in charge of some type of witches,
Yeah.
like
The
whatever.
coven
But
leader, who knows?
yeah, but like to me when I was reading it, I was like, bro, this sounds so much like the fucking the witches from Throne of Glass.
Yeah, well, and I think I thought that when I was reading as well, but I'm glad that like when I read your note like before for the episode, I was
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm glad that she mentioned that because yeah, I was like, wow, like even the way she described, I think like them flying on the broomsticks, I was like, oh,
Yes.
this is like very Throne of Glassy.
Yeah, and someone had mentioned that online, like how that could connect to this
Which why wouldn't
book.
it? You know what I'm saying? Like Midgard, where Crescent City is, whatever,
They're all just
is
one
a
world.
planet, right? They're opening gates from everywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't hate that. And honestly, we'll talk about this as well. I don't know what point we have this at. There's talk of the other shifters, like that shifted into animals that are
Yeah.
also Fae.
Hmm.
I also
We see that a lot in Throne of Glass.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Like I saw you write Tamlin next to it, which I was like, that's also like very true. But
Yeah.
I'm like, hello, like the whole cabal or whatever,
Yeah.
like they all are animal shifters.
Yeah, like
So
Adian. No, not Adian.
yeah,
His dad. His dad, like, right?
yeah.
And
Adis.
even Rowan.
Well,
No,
is
Adis is a Prince of Hell.
JK. It is 80, and you're right.
Um, that other guy, the White Wolf, and he had the twin.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Rowan's a fucking hawk. Like,
Right. Yeah, I forget all their names. I wish I
but
didn't, but
like
I
my
do.
thing is like, okay, like even if she's like pulling
I don't want her to
inspiration from
fully
Throne of
do
Glass,
it.
yeah, I don't want to have a mashup between
No,
this and Throne of Glass. Like
I
let
don't
Throne of
either.
Glass be over.
I want it to be like, oh, we did take people from here,
Mm-hmm.
and now hopefully this book we defeat the Asteri. I don't know again where it's
Yeah.
going, but I want it to be like, oh, we've liberated the people on this world, and now the gates are open if you want to travel around. It's almost like fucking going to other countries, you know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
like leave it at that. But I don't need like a full Throne of Glass mashup.
No, definitely not.
No.
Um, but yeah, so anyways, now they're, back in Crescent City. Hunt's describing that he keeps like seeing this like shadow in the dungeon with them. Turns out it's one of the princes of hell. And he mentions Hunt's dad to him, and I was like,
I'm gonna read the quote because it's interesting.
yeah, I was like your he said something like, oh, like your dad expected more, like created you for more or something like that.
Yeah, he said like bred him. I was like, oh.
Yeah. And that
Yeah.
he what does it say?
What you were born to do, to accomplish the task for which your father brought you into existence.
Yeah.
Or
So like
like,
that's like very existential. Like, okay, what is your purpose, Hunt?
right. Yeah,
I mean,
he's
I guess
a,
like obviously we knew like something was bigger because like he's
yeah.
named after the constellation and
And they've mentioned his dad in sketchy ways,
yeah,
so that'll be interesting. I'm excited to see where that goes.
for sure. He also mentions that they know where Bryce is and so does Rigulus, so like they're kind of fucked.
Yeah, but they
Um,
can't find them. So like we are fucked like once he finds that planet, but like he still can't find it. Like even if he's like, "Oh, she's
yeah.
in the original origin world," like he still can't get to it.
Yeah, which I wonder if there was like wards or something put around
Hmm. Good point.
that world. Maybe like that's why like it's like veiled from them.
Right, right, right. I like it.
Anyways, so like I don't know. I feel really bad for Lydia because like she's really out here doing the most, try to save
She is.
them all
I hope they
basically.
end up together.
I really do. And like the fact that she went to the meat market, like where Tharian
Yes.
and all of them are, and
Yes.
she's like, please, like I need your help, like I'm on your side, and they're still giving her shit, but
Well,
like
mind you,
obviously
that's
she loves Rune.
shocking. I mean, she walks in and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna die," and she's like, "No, guys, I'm saving Rune." And they're like, "I'm sorry, what?"
Yeah,
Like,
like you're not being punked. Like Lydia, the type of person that she is, and like the clout that she holds. Do you really think she'd be belittling herself just for fun?
but like they also know that she's like a fucked up person who needs to like have like mind games. So they're probably like, "I don't know. Like, are you here to like trick us into coming there?" Like,
But
I
they're
would be.
already fucked. Like they're essentially already fucked too.
Yes, they are, but I would be scared as well.
I mean, like I get like there need to be like suspect of her, but like
I feel bad knowing that she's being genuine, but I
yeah,
don't blame them.
yeah. And then the fact that she still has to go back to Pollux and like
Oh
deal with
god,
him.
he's
I
just the
hate. Listen,
worst.
I hate their interactions. Like it actually makes me like throw up. I hate how he talks. I hate his like his what he thinks is swagger. Like he's disgusting. Like he's the epitome of like a masochistic, misogynistic, sexist piece of shit.
Yeah, and I also love how, obviously those chapters of Lydia, like you're reading it through her point of view,
Mm-hmm.
and she also describes him like even like non-verbally, just like in gross terms. Like, okay, I hated it. Again, also like you said, like revolted. He was like getting out of the shower and he was trying to like have sex with her, but like he like
Mm-hmm.
bites her and shit, but like not in like a fun way, like in like a
Yeah.
fucked up, like he's like legit biting her way. Um, and like she described it like his heavy cock was swinging, and I was like,
Ew.
I hate it, but it wasn't like a good way. Like she wasn't saying it like in like a like ooh yay. She was
Yeah.
like it just like
Ew.
gave me such icky.
Yeah, and like also too like the fact that like okay like she's on her period, right, quote unquote, and so like he won't have sex with her because she's bleeding. Oh, that's disgusting to you. Let's talk about all the other fucking shit that you've done and you do on a
Right.
daily
Like
basis, but
that's like
that's
a
gross.
right, like that's a fine stance to have. Like that's not your preference in like
Fine.
life, but when you torture people and also bite her and probably torture her,
Yeah.
you can't
And
really.
then yeah, and then after that, like, pages down, like in the first part, he was like, "Well, fuck it, whatever. I don't care if you're bleeding or not." Like,
Yeah, he just is like
like
he
you're just
just
ugh, gross.
he doesn't want to inconvenience himself at all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. His
And
way or
yeah,
the
so then
highway.
Well, and I saw your point too. I wanted to, because I remember reading this and I was like, what? So she like took like almost like plan B and gave herself her period early so that she
Yeah.
had an excuse. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it was like she didn't take plan B because like she was scared of being pregnant. I think she just took it to like make her plan work. So I think we're all good with Lydia. No,
Okay.
no one's pregnant.
Yeah, because if I was like, I was like, if this is another fucking pregnant trope,
I don't
because
think it
I was
is.
thinking, so I was thinking was that when like her and Rune had sex, like mind sex, she got
Mm,
pregnant that way, and I was
I
like,
would, I would really hate that.
I'd be like, that's like cool that like that could happen, but like I don't need another pregnancy trope. Like
I wouldn't like it.
let that die in Akatar. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that. I don't think either. Aside for the pregnancy, I wouldn't like that you could get pregnant from mind sex either. Like I'd be like, what? Like I don't. That's really inconvenient.
I
Like
mean, it's a fantasy world. I think it happened, right?
I fucking guess. Okay, and so we get rid of Pollux's. I guess that'd be his plural. Whatever. We leave him. Goodbye, friend, and we go back to Prithian. And so Nesta is like, hey, girl, why do you have an 8-pointed star tattoo? Like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, this is what happened. And like, this is just like what formed. I don't know. She's like, I heard it was like, the symbol of like, my origin world. Here I
Mm-hmm.
am. And Nesta's like, well, that's great and all. But she's like, it's interesting because I made a bargain and that was like the tattoo that formed on my back as well. Like the
I totally,
same exact
I
thing.
forgot about that,
Yeah. Well,
and I
that's
was
why
like,
when we
oh,
reread it, like I was like, ooh, they're the same tattoo. And then Bryce is like, well, we were destined to be besties, which I'm like,
yeah,
I'm interested why Nesta got that. Um,
yeah.
because it does tie her into it, but I'm like curious if like that's all the point was just they would be, interacting or if there's
But
more to that.
why isn't Cassian brought into this then?
Correct. Right. Like what's up with that? And so yeah. And so there's a whole chat as well. I'm gonna open my book again, just because there's some quotes about Bryce and the Asteri. And just a little chit chat going on. But we're starting to uncover more as they talk. And it's funny because these chapters, they're a little frustrating to me, I think, because they're all trying to not tell each other things because they don't trust each other. Like
Yeah.
Bryce doesn't trust them to like not go to the Asteri. She's like, are
Mm-hmm.
they like power players? They don't trust her. So it's like as a reader trying to get information out of any of them, you're like,
Yeah, it's very frustrating.
bro,
Like you
just
guys are all on the same side essentially.
but they don't know that, which I understand, you know. Um,
Why can't we be friends?
right,
Why
right.
can't we be friends?
So basically, like Ness just kind of comes at Bryce hard, and she's like, "So, what's the difference between you and the Asteri? Like, you have a star in you, you're world jumping." And Bryce is
Yeah.
like, "Well, fuck, I don't know, actually." Um,
That was actually really funny. I was like, yeah, exactly.
yeah, she like really like had her like questioning her
Who she was.
existence.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, "Wow, we're getting philosophical." Um, and she was saying like the Asteri claim their powers are from holy stars, but they can like physically manipulate things, kill, destroy, whatever. And she's like, they might not even have stars inside them because it's all a lie. Like they're just taking our powers.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like she's like, I legit have like light. Like that's all I could do.
Mm-hmm.
I just shine. Um, I do think that was interesting. Like, why did SJM make that a point? Like that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so curious. And so as we just mentioned, Bryce is, untrusting of them. She's being like a sneaky little, I don't know, she always has a fucking plot up her sleeve. And so she fell before and her hands and knees got cut. Now they've been noting this whole time that her hands have not stopped bleeding. Um they were like, why is she still bleeding? Why isn't she healing? Mind you, I was also like, why? Like I thought it was gonna be a big plot point.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out Bryce is just picking the scabs off her hands to continue to bleed. And she is doing that to leave a blood trail for the Midgard worm to like pop out and attack them.
Surprise, surprise.
Right. And then she'll take that time to be like,
Mm-hmm.
LOL, you guys handle this. I'm gonna
Yeah.
dip out.
But of course, Az was the one who realized this.
Right. Well,
He
they
was
also
like, your hands
realize,
have not stopped bleeding, but your knees are healed. And she was like, why is he aware of the scabs on my knees? You know?
which like, but then I really thought it was gonna be like a big deal. I was like, what is going on? Like some like I thought it was
Yeah.
like some weird ancient magic, and I was like, oh my god, like like I
Mm-hmm.
was like, no, she's just being a sneaky bitch. And so they really realized what happened when the Midgard worm fucking burst out of the wall and starts to
Yeah.
attack them. Um, so as they're fighting the worm, Nesta decides to take out the mask, the dead mask, to raise the dead, and raises this like spooky skeleton, little
Yeah.
spooky, scary
I was
skeleton
like, why does
beast.
she why I was like, why does she just have this casually?
So I know when she puts it back, quote unquote, it says like she like bloops it away. But my thing is this. It was such an emphasis last book that she needed to ward it, hide it, this, that, the
So
other.
that she wouldn't be able to access it.
She's just fucking popping off with this thing now. I
Yeah.
mean, I did not like that. I was like,
No.
also, I fully, if you wrote that they fought the Midgard worm and beat it, I would have believed you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Um, and now, also turns out, so as they're fighting this worm, right? Bryce dips. She runs. She hears like silence, like, oh no, but
Mm-hmm.
here's the worm. So now they also fucking tricked her because they wanted her to think that, they
They
died
died.
and like
Yeah.
were counting on her,
To come
feeling
and save
guilty,
them.
whatever. And
Yeah.
they were lying. They were totally fine. And they were like, LOL, now you have to help us, whatever.
I was like,
So
they're all two-timing bitches.
all
Like,
of them,
can we just get to the end of the tunnel, please?
yeah, like, keep on walking.
We're all
Anyways,
going the same place.
literally, but no, they don't feel that way. Anyways, and so yeah, Nesta ends up killing the worm with the mask. What we both found interesting,
I
she
hate this.
is called back to herself. She's, all powerful. She's kind of in it. As we've noticed, these books, they get stuck when there's like immense power. She's only able to be brought back to herself when Azrael mentions Nyx and his name.
Which I thought was very interesting because he was like, come back for Cassian. And then he was
And
like,
she was like,
Feyre and
no.
Elaine. And then all of a sudden he was like, Nyx. And she like fucking woke up. And I'm like, ew, why?
um, I think that like Cassian should have helped, but I also think potentially like we also don't know how much time has passed, right, since Nyx has been born. I'm not saying that he's like a full grown adult, but I'm saying like they could be like, I think like when there's a baby born and it's like
Hmm.
again like her blood nephew, like there's just like a different like chamber of your heart and there's like innocence and purity and that like brought her back to like her like humanity. I mean, again, I don't know. Like, I have no idea how she feels about this kid at all. It's like it was a
Yeah.
weird thing to do when we don't know how old Nyx is. We don't know their relationship. We don't know, like,
Yeah,
we
I
have no
wasn't a
idea.
fan.
So, like, I think if she said Cassian or he said Cassian and it brought her back, I'd have been more like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't
I don't
know.
know. I didn't like that
So,
point.
she's brought back. She bloops her mask away casually, like, hello.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that was wild. Again, I would have rather just like basic bitches fight with their powers they got, we're good to
Mm-hmm.
go.
Yeah.
And I would have believed it. Like Feyre killed it with no magic at all. So
Mm-hmm.
I
And
would
she
have
was
believed
and
it
she
if
was
she
still a
didn't.
human.
Right, like I would have believed it if they didn't bring the mask into it. But that's fine.
Yeah.
Um
Um okay, so like in this part, right? So Bryce is like, you have to charge me up, like give me your power so like I can help you defeat this thing. And so she was being vulnerable in that moment and letting, because she's been holding that a secret, like she hasn't told them that like she has power if someone gives it to her, right?
yeah, and she had to like
So
winnow as well.
yeah, and I thought it was interesting, because now I'm like on high alert and I'm like, oh my god, are Bryce and Az mates? Because you are very strong in your feelings on this.
I don't know if I
And
think they're yeah, I'm not sure. I don't
well,
know.
anyways, she goes into detail about how Az's magic feels compared to Hunt's.
Right, which is weird.
I thought that was very interesting. And I was like,
Yeah, so
interesting.
she said that like Asriel's power was like undiluted, like felt like 100 proof like liquor, whereas
Yeah.
Hunt's was like like diluted. And she's wondering if it's just because like the Asteries steal their power. Like, are we just
Oh,
lesser? Um,
that's valid.
right. I don't know. So it's
I just thought that
interesting.
was, yeah, I thought that was like an interesting point because you're
And then she
like,
does, she's able to like winnow them across this big
yeah,
jump because she, was able to take his power. Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's an interesting point, regardless if it's because of the Asteri, if it's because of Azriel and her. I'm not sure, but I like it regardless.
Hmm. I don't know. I'm thinking like they have to have a moment in this book, which is why everyone's like making all this fucking fan art between the two of them. Like they must have
Yeah.
some type of moment. So I'll get back to that after. But
Okay.
anyways, Nesta also mentions that she's seen the 8-pointed star before, and it clicks in her head, and she was like, "Oh, I've seen it in the prison where the harp was."
Mm-hmm.
like the harp was on a stand on top of an 8-pointed star.
Correct.
And lo and behold, the star is leading them to the prison. Wow.
Yeah, which
Crazy.
I was like, fuck yes.
Yeah.
I was like
Um
frothing at the mouth. I was
but
like,
I thought it honestly, while I was reading, I was like, Jamie probably feels so fucking victorious right now.
oh my god,
Like,
I was like, keep it coming.
she's like a pig in shit. But
Yeah. Yep.
I thought it was interesting though that like none of the inner circle and honestly like nobody knows about these tunnels.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, it's news for us. But I don't know though. Like maybe Reese did know and he just didn't say anything.
That's true. No, but I
But
don't. But
maybe not,
I don't think so. I think like,
because when they go into the story of
yes.
everything and like how this knowledge was supposed to be passed down through
Yeah.
the
As is
lords
like
of the
Reese
night
doesn't
court.
know.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
I thought, I was like, okay, cool. Anyways, we can talk about that later. Um, but then also Bryce points out that like in the prison, they're in a chamber, right?
Yeah, it's where the harp
And
was held, but it's empty
yeah,
now. But you know.
and she's looking and she's like, oh my god, these are all the constellations of Midgard.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read that, I was like, oh fuck, like this is crazy. Like some shit's about to go down.
I did also, in a way, I don't. I want to be in Prithian the entire time, but it's also fun because then after, like, you find out, like, oh, the constellations are all from Midgard. Like, it
Yeah.
flashes to a chapter, like, back in, like, Crescent City. So it's almost like you have, like, little, like plot twists and, like, cliffhangers, like, within the book. So it's, like,
Well,
fun.
so that okay, well that reminds me of like in Throne of Glass when you have Tower of Dawn and what was the
Mm
other one?
hmm.
Is it Air of
Empire of Storms.
Empire Storms? You're supposed to read them. No, is
Mm
it Empire of Storms the last? Oh wait, no, never mind. You're supposed to read them like in tandem because
hmm.
they're
Right.
happening at the same time, right? So a lot of the things that we were reading in Empire of Storms, I was like, oh my god, like this is crazy, but like Kale like obviously doesn't know this because he's
Right.
with
So it's kind of
Renee
like
and
she, like,
whatever.
tandem wrote her own book.
Yeah, which I mean, I didn't hate, but like,
Yeah, I was eager to get back, but it was kind of
yeah.
nice to like be like, "Oh, what's gonna happen now?"
The problem is that I feel like there's just like a lot going on.
Yeah,
You're really being ping ponged all over the
well, right,
place.
because you have Bryce and them in Prithian, and then you
Hmm.
have not only just Crescent City, but you have Rune in Crescent City and
Hmm.
Ethan and all the others. So there's
Yeah,
like two Crescent City stories going on,
but
and
like
then
I,
Lydia.
well, so I can understand because like a lot of people have told me that, um, is it Throne of Glass when she starts the dual perspectives of like back and
Mm-hmm.
forth, back and forth. I've heard from a lot of people that I know that they don't like that. They
Right,
don't like the multiple POVs within the book. And I feel like because she does this a lot in this series, like I understand that it's a lot to understand and to process. I mean, I
right,
personally love it.
right. Maybe
You
that's why
know,
people didn't like this book, which is our
it's
hot. It's a hope, you
yeah,
know.
maybe. I mean, like I'm not saying that like oh, like it's not hard for me to keep up. You know what I mean? But
Right,
like
right,
I don't know, I guess maybe that's just the type of reader I am. Like I kind of just want to know everything
right.
like
Which,
at
yeah,
once.
I don't hate it. It's just like, but I'm like eager to get back to like my favorite part of it, like.
Yeah. But
And so,
I wonder if there's like a point in this book where it's kind of like ugh, and then it gets slow. That's like my fear.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll find out. Well, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because now we go back to Ethan and all of them. And so Ethan decided it would be in his best interest to make a bargain type of thing with the Viper Queen. Not a
Everybody
good,
loves their bargains.
loves him. And so Ethan is like, okay, I will do one fight for you if you let Tharian and all of us go. Now, he like didn't ask a lot of questions. Like even the group after is like, you didn't ask who you're fighting. Like,
Mm-hmm.
great, good fucking job. So he's doing that. Now, Rune and Lydia also speak mind to mind. Hunt kind of like makes Rune. He's like, listen, we really need her. Like, we are fucked. Like, talk to her. Like, sorry, get over your lover's quarrel. Like, she's trying to help us, so we should
Mm-hmm.
probably take advantage of that. Rune's being such a dick. Such a dick.
Yeah, it just doesn't end.
And again, you know how I feel about it, all of you guys. So just it is what it is, but I just don't like it. Now, okay, also, this next part was the I mean,
Yes, yes,
wow. So basically, they're
yes.
all hanging from shackles in the ceiling, hands are up in the air. Um, there's like methods of torture in front of them. So they're like, well, if Rune swings and gets it with his feet, he can like shove it in the chains and like twist his ankles and like break it, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's swinging, he can't reach them. So they're like, Rune's like, oh, I know how to fix this. I think one of you should bite off my hand, and then I will be able to swing far enough to get the poker, have it in my feet, do like a little like ab curl upward, jam it in, break the chains, we're free. Um, wow, biting off someone's fucking hand.
And I think it's crazy how he turns to Hunt. He's like, you are the chosen one to bite
Yeah, and
off my
Hunt was
hand.
like, ooh, and honestly, I gained respect for Baxian in this part because he was
Hmm.
like, you know what? He's like, I'll do it because you guys are like friends, and that's like a weird line you shouldn't cross. Um, and so yeah, I mean, I was like legit screaming. Like she also described it mad gory and shit.
Yeah, she was very
Like, I mean, if you think
descriptive.
about it, if you're okay, so like I was really thinking about it, right? Because at first you're like, that's not good. But then when you really like think about what it would take to bite through someone's hand, I mean,
And it's
wow.
not like a clean bite. Like Baxian is like chewing on his hand.
Yeah, it's nauseating for sure.
I was like, have we really gone this far? I was like, is this really happening? Are we
Yeah,
really
no, it
doing
was
this?
really happening. And so yeah, he does indeed gnaw off his fucking hand like a mouse. And
Ugh.
the second that Rune gets the fire poker, Regulus, the hawk, and Pollux walk in,
Like
and
what?
they're like ah. And I think Lydia walks in, and she was like,
Yeah, she was
oh
mortified.
my god. She's like, and again, I like this world. In the sense of he's like, well, it'll grow back. And like I feel like if that is your stance, right? Like, yeah, you should fucking gnaw off my hand. Like, imagine it didn't grow back. That'd be worse.
Well, I guess that was the thinking, right? But like that's extreme. Like we are in extreme shit right here.
But at the same time, you're gonna die there and be tortured. So like if your hand's gonna grow back, it almost judges like your morals and like how far would you go? And it's like, honestly, yeah. I mean, if it's gonna grow back, it sucks, but at the end of the day, like,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
you probably would resort to shit like that.
Yeah.
I mean, people would do that shit if their hand didn't grow back. You know what I'm saying? So like, I also like in my head, right? Like I was thinking of like the grow back process, and like those like little like tiny plastic hands people like use for like funny videos. I was
Yeah.
like, did it start off like that? Like, how does this or does it start off like a stump and then it grows fingers?
Yeah, I think
Probably
so.
that,
Yeah.
not a little baby hand.
No.
Okay.
No. It's good to know that like these veneer who've taken the drop are basically like chia pets.
Yeah, it's good to know. We want to regrow them.
It's fucking weird.
Can
Anyways.
I grow my own rune? Thank you. Yeah. And so yeah, so they walk in and they're caught and they're fucked. So did no reason to know off your hands.
Yeah. What a waste. Anyways, so now the POV switches back to Bryce and she's back in the like we're back in the prison and she's like, I'm gonna step on the 8-pointed star. So she walks up to it and all of a sudden this fucking holograph appears. And immediately I was like, ugh, throwing a glass for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, granted that
Um
was like a ghost, but like I don't know, same
yeah.
vibes it was giving
Right. I
me,
mean, she's kind of like a ghosty.
I guess.
So yeah, similar vibes and then comes back to our point as always is she just unoriginal, but that being said, if all the worlds do connect, there would be similarities. So
But like
you can
also my
argue either
yeah,
way.
but my thing is like how did she make a holograph? Because
Well,
they don't
didn't
have this tech.
wasn't she over in Crescent City for a while?
Celine?
I think so. I don't remember.
I don't think so.
I
She
don't know.
stayed,
Hmm.
right? I don't know. I'm
They
confused.
went
Anyway,
back and forth a lot. This is a part we'll try to explain to you guys, but it's honestly like we probably won't grasp it until like the second read, to be completely honest with you.
yeah. So basically, the holograph is Celine. So this is Thea's second daughter. So who we've been waiting for.
Hallie was like pumped.
I was like sick. So yeah, I was. Yeah, I don't know. It was giving me like hella Throne of Glass vibes, and I was kind of like, honestly, this is a little bit unoriginal, SJM, but whatever. I'll give it
But
to
like I
you.
said, who knows? Like if all their worlds are related, there would be similar things in their worlds.
Yeah, I guess. Well, anyways, so as like immediate is like that looks like Reese's sister, and you're like, oh shit,
Which
that's
I was like, is it his sister? Like,
yeah,
it's not, but
yeah, but definitely okay. So that's probably definitely a big clue that like Reese is descended from Celine.
yes, that's and like to me, I'm like, like you shouldn't make a point that intense. Like it looks like his sister if it's like just his ancestor. Like, well, obviously, but it's fine. I get over
I
it.
mean, so that really just confirms that like Bryce and Reese are cousins. Anyways,
Yes.
we basically learned that like Thea worked for the Asteri. She was
Mm-hmm.
like not the maid, but like she was I don't know.
Yeah, she
She
was like,
like
yeah. I don't know what her like title was either, but she was like,
she lived with them, she worked for them, and like the head of
yes,
Asteri, like that was on Prithian, like she was not like her second in command.
but she like knew what was going on.
Kinda, yeah. Anyways, and then we find out that she was married to the first High King, whose name was
Fionn,
Fionn.
and that is Celine's father.
Yeah. So that solves like who was the original High King, the last High King of Prithian.
And it's all, and that's what like Asriel was shocked, and he's like, "Oh my god, you're a descendant to Bryce
Mm-hmm.
of Fionn," which
Yeah.
in turn would mean Reese is as well.
Yeah.
Down that like weird line, whatever.
Yeah. However that fucking shit works.
But
But also in this part,
yeah.
the Eighth Court is confirmed. The prison. I
Oh,
was
like
like, I said Jamie. I literally was like, "Yay, Jamie!" when I was
dude,
reading it.
okay, wait. I'm gonna just read it because guys, like, give me my second, you know what I'm saying? I deserve it, truthfully. So yeah, we're learning all their history. Honestly, once I read that, I was like, I don't care who's related to fucking who, this is all I needed to know.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was like, this island on which you stand, this place, my mother claimed it for herself, who is Thea. This very island where she had once served as a slave became her domain, her sanctuary. She told me many times that she and her heirs were the only ones worthy of tending this island. So that's where it becomes important for like Reese, Bryce, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Thus the land's powers became my mother's. Dusk, twilight, that's what the island was in its long buried heart, what her power bloomed into, the land's rising with it. It was, as she said, as if the island had a soul that now blossomed under her care, nurtured by the court she built here. Okay, you're saying dusk, you're saying court, it's all in one paragraph. I am just a tizzy, to be honest.
Well, it's just like okay, so
Wow.
like this part, honestly, this to like the end of the first half is like all the fucking history.
Yeah, it's the hologram like talking to us.
So it's a lot
It is a
really to
lot.
digest.
It is,
Like
yes.
so basically Thea tricks the Asteri.
Yes.
She dies the Asteri, quote unquote, apparently. Um and so Thea's now in charge. So now like because she's ruling, like she's getting the power from the land
Mm-hmm.
and things are thriving. We also learned that like the middle, like that whole part of Prithian was like the Daglins like play area. Like that was their fucking playground.
Yeah, they literally used it as like their like play park to go hunting, and like they had like I can't speak today. That's where like all the beasties were because they were like hunting them, and like it was like their hunting grounds.
Yeah.
Um,
I thought that was like really fucking interesting.
and so yeah, so we learned. Okay, so Thea and Fionn are fine. Um, Fionn ends up dying there, like
Yeah, because of
because he
Thea.
went hunting there. Yeah, and she betrayed him. Now Peleus is her general. So now basically her and Peleus are like in cahoots, like, they like trust each other. And so the Asteri
Well,
told
he was like
Peleus,
he was like her second in command.
yeah, like he's her general. So like they were
Yeah.
close. And then the Asteri got in his head and were like, have her, you know, open the world, like the doors and come to this world. Like, don't tell her it's us. Like, cause she
Hmm.
was like done with the Asteri. She was pissed. She didn't want anything to do with them. She was like, this is fucked up. So then he convinced her to open the door to Midgard. That's when all that happened, and she found out it was like the Asteri
Hmm.
and was like devastated. That's why Peleus like then began all the history we know. He was with them. She
Yeah.
was against it. That's how she met fucking Adis.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like. the prequel to what we already know.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, we learned that the Asteri made the dread trove, and the horn
Yes.
is the missing object. So that's
Which,
all squared away
yeah, she literally just said it like so casually. She's
casually.
like, oh, but basically we learn, which is a big part here. Again, that's like the history we kind of glossed over, but that's like the important parts.
Mm-hmm.
But what Hallie just mentioned, so the Asteri made the Dread Trove because they were realizing this magic in this land wasn't as potent as their homeworld, and so they had to like have additional objects they imbued. Now they also revealed that they like made the cauldron an option. So they also made the cauldron and they
Yeah.
attached this world to it, and it's like this world's like kill switch, and they would
Yeah.
make that for like all the worlds in case shit got out of hand. They could just be like, all right, destroy that object and we're good to go. Keep it moving. The world's dead.
Which I wonder what the kill switch is for Crescent City. Like when that was said, I was like,
Hmm. That's a good point.
right?
I literally was just like, oh, that kind of makes sense because talked about that at the end of
I mean, maybe it's the bank like underneath the Eternal City, like their first light bank. Like if that were to be
hmm.
depleted, like maybe, but like it's not the way that it's set up in Prithian is like if something happens to the cauldron, like we're all dead. Like that was very
Well,
prevalent from
right,
the
right.
beginning, but we haven't
But
heard anything about that from Crescent City.
agreed. And we also like were like kind of like, oh, that's a weird plot thing. So I'm kind of glad that that's like explained. Like, how does this whole world revolve around the cauldron? Like, it genuinely does, which is
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And so then we also learn there's a second breed of Fae, right? So we learn there's shifters. So how Danica was discovering the shifters in this world, they are also Fae.
Mm-hmm.
So the wolves are descendants of Fae. So are the angels. So are the mermaids. So they're all really Fae
Yeah.
in some part. Now, Hallie wrote like there could be a Tamlin theory here. There could be lots of theories here.
Yeah.
And so what were you thinking in regards to Tamlin?
Well, like I wonder if there's gonna be like history tied in about like the second breed of Fae, like where those roots originated. Like because they weren't native to Prithian,
Right, correct.
so it was like so I was thinking like, oh, like when Thea opened like the portals or whatever, were other people like able to come in that's like not talked about because it wasn't
Right.
like the main part of the history.
Right. Or so I agree with that.
Because you know how the theory is we're bringing in all these Fae
Yes.
into Midgard
Right. And so
because they needed
see,
more power. So I wonder if they had started that in Prithian, but
right.
then the Fae in Prithian were like, "Fuck this! Like you're done." You know what I mean?
Yeah. So see, I guess like my thought when they were talking about shifters, my thought would be, right. So I think I'm unsure. It could be some like because Tamlin is like a wolf form.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like curious if that ties in.
I mean, I'm
Now,
just speculating because
no,
Reese also
agreed.
has a beast form.
Well, that's what I was gonna just say is that the High Lords all have like a beast form. So like, is Tamlin just coincidentally like a wolf type creature?
Mm,
Now, where I think it could cross over could be Throne of Glass because Rowan and the Cabal and all them do, like we just said a few minutes ago, have their animal forms. So could that just be like a quick little tie-in? Again, we've seen Aelin
yeah,
flying through the sky in Silver Flames. Like again, I don't want a full crossover, but if they were like, oh, these shifters came from the world and their town was Terracin, I'd be like, great, love it,
yeah,
Terracine, whatever. Like I'd be like, end it there. I wouldn't mind if she like dropped that little seed in, just kind of like how Aelin floated through the sky as the red comet. I was like, ooh, that was a cool little thing. Now just leave it there.
yeah.
Like I'm good. So interesting. Unsure if we'll find out more about that. I'm sure we will.
Mm,
And so Thea and Celine and Helena. So Thea's the mother, Helena and Celine are the children. They figured out the Asteria were parasites from their world. Like once they opened the rift, they were like, oh, these are the ones we banished from here. Like, gotta retreat, backtrack, gotta go. Now, they got some new tricks in Crescent City. They
mm,
used to, in Prithian, have a tithe, which is crazy because Tamlin still does that.
yeah,
How fucking insane. Um, they had a tithe and it would be like to give a portion of your magic to them. And it was like a voluntary thing. They were like, the people knew they were taking their magic. Like, this is what you're doing.
mm,
Crescent City, they got trickier. People obviously were not thrilled about this, so they were like, ooh, let's make it like they don't even know the truth, which is how this whole conspiracy got brought up. But the whole drop situation that Bryce has to go through to come to the immortality, to give a portion of your first light away, all this stuff, the Asteri put like parasites in their water and it will like stunt their powers until they make the drop. And they made it like this, like they even said, oh, they made it this like religious experience. And I was like,
Mhm.
damn, that's fucked up.
Mhm.
So I guess in Prithian, the people knew they were like parasitic people who were taking their powers. Now that's why Crescent City it's a problem because it's like it's all lies. It's just
Yeah.
bullshit.
Mhm.
So that's crazy. And so now Thea is mentioned that Adis is her mate. So Celine tells us like, oh, the portal to hell opened up. My mom said it opened up because her and Adis were mates across the world. I don't mind that. That was kind of cute, romantic. I was into it.
Yeah.
Um, Whatever. I'm fine with
But
that.
I mean, that was fine. But like again, like the whole mate thing. Like okay,
Right.
now even the fucking Prince of Hell has a mate. Like
Right. Okay, fair. Yeah. Um, okay, they also talk about how they're riding on Pegasuses, which I'm like,
mhm.
yes, came from the Dust Court. Thank you kindly. Like, okay, just checking off everything I needed. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Now, Celine is like, oh, I'll spare you the details, but ended up marrying the High Lord of Night and became his High Lady. And we were like, oh, okay, well, so you are indeed Reese's great, great, great
Yeah.
grandmother or something. She
Mhm.
mentions how they were supposed to all hear of this lineage, like, over time and, like, all the truth of the Asteri.
Like the story was supposed to be passed down through generations.
Clearly it was not, because, like, even Nessa's like, does Reese know about this? Like, whispers to Azriel, and
Mhm.
he's like, no.
Yeah.
So yeah, so weird. So they are ancestors, which again, that has to make Reese and Bryce cousins something. I don't know what, but you know.
They're
And I
related.
honestly speculate that's the only reason that he looks like Rune. It's not like bigger than that, I'm sure, which is
Yeah.
annoying. I wish it was more, but whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and so Bryce is annoying this part. We both would agree with that. They're all on the same side, but they're still kind of like trying to thwart each other. And it's like irritating because we know that they're all good. But I do
Mhm.
again understand the characters have not had 6 books of
Yeah.
learning these things.
I mean, like I get that like Bryce is like she's like on a mission, right? Like she's like trying to
Yeah,
figure
she
shit
wants to
out
save
and get
Hun.
back.
Right. And so she is like, I'm gonna go like I don't know, she starts taking like power out of the floor, but then is like doing some, magic-y stuff and ends up crashing through the floor. Um, and she's trying to like trick Nesta and Az. And then what ends up happening is she finds a quartz coffin with someone
Mhm.
inside of it, under the floor.
Okay, so when this happened, and they're like describing her, I thought it was Celine. Like initially, I was like, "Yo, this bitch
Mm-hmm.
preserved herself." Like this is crazy.
That would have been iconic, actually.
But then I was like, "Yo, this is Throne of Glass. Literally, this is Throne of Glass." Of course, coffin. Like, come on.
Yeah, but again, like I'm like, do I hate it because it is like the same world? I don't know. I don't know. And so, yeah. And then so this fucking woman, I can't, I'm so excited, I can't even speak.
Uh,
This woman's alive. She opens her eyes. And
Mad
it's
creepy.
funny because, like, it would have been creepy. Agreed. It was creepy. But then uh, Bryce describes her as having blowjob red lipstick, which I was like, well, you're a lot less creepy now.
On the floor, literally.
Yeah. But it
It's
does turn
giving
out it is creepy because she is the Asteri that Celine was talking about that her mother was like,
warning against.
yeah, so we
'Cause
have an Asteri in this world, which is like no bueno.
this whole time and no one's known because Thea always told her daughters like there's an evil that is underneath this world.
Yeah, but
And
she literally meant underneath.
yeah, like crazy.
Thank you, Thea, for
So
being
I was
fucking.
like,
Also, I'm sorry. Like, just tell your daughters. Like, you're on the same side. Same thing. Like, why are we all having these weird secrets?
seriously, like at this point,
Just,
like,
just be like, hey, she's under the coffin. Don't let her out.
yeah, I don't know.
And that was why Thea made the Dust Court the prison because she said that the evil, like emanating off the Asteri, would have
Hmm.
been too noticeable. So she like just packed it full of inmates, like evil, so that like they were like, oh well, it's evil because of that.
Hmm. Well, I guess that makes sense why like the whole middle, like nothing grows, right? Like it's all very
Right.
dead.
So
You have the
that was
bog.
like kind of like had like she didn't want anyone knowing the Asteri was there in case I guess they used it for their own power, whatever.
Yeah,
And so she like packed it full of prisoners to be like, well, that's why it's evil. So no one knew. Like this, they're the first ones figuring this fucking shit out, which is crazy.
yeah. Well, I mean, like things in Crescent City obviously are not any better.
Everyone's having a bad day.
Yeah, so like Ethan strolls up to his fight that he has to do for the Viper Queen,
Oh boy.
and he has to fight Siggy. Jeez, could have seen that one coming. So
Jeez. We all thought it was Adriadne. I don't
yeah, the dragon,
Airy.
because even Tharian goes to her Ari before the fight and is like, Ethan's a good guy, like you should like drop out before
But
like
then something happens where the Viper Queen says, like, oh, I had another deal that benefited us both. So where did Ari go? That's going to be a
exactly.
thing as well, for
Yeah,
sure.
because Ethan's like, I thought I was supposed to fight Ari. And she was like, no, we have a mutually beneficial agreement.
So
But
where'd she
like
go?
but
Curious.
yeah, but the Viper Queen doesn't own her.
Right. But
She
now, like, some
still she
weird
still
thing
belongs to the
happened.
astronomer. I don't know, very strange. Um
That'll be a
I,
thing now. Mark my words. I feel it.
yeah, so Ethan and Siggy are like, you know, sparring. And like Siggy's down, like Ethan like got her down to the ground and it looks like, like she's gonna let him kill her, and then I know where she like fucking flips a switch. True alpha
She
through and
was really,
through.
like, trying to kill him, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, I mean she like went after him, but then because they describe it as like she's still like finding her balance or something, like with fighting, she wasn't properly trained. She like swung like a certain direction as Ethan was trying to like go for her shoulder and fucking just clawed her neck, like just fucking ripped her head off or
Yeah,
something
he,
like
like,
that.
clawed her neck and then he pulled his hand out and her head fell off.
Yeah, so
So
now
she's
she's
dead.
dead.
But,
Also
okay.
very
So,
abrupt.
yes, I'm not convinced that she's dead, dead. Just because, again, I think that could okay, so that was
What
the point we
is
were
her
making
head
before.
gonna get regrown? I don't
I
know.
don't know. I want her to be dead. I really do. Like, I think, again, like, sometimes things happen in these worlds where it is abrupt. So cool, leave it like that. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
yeah.
I would be fine if she was dead, dead. I'm cool with that because then honestly, then it opens the path for maybe Ethan could be the new Prime.
Yeah, but then why even write that whole part?
Well, I think he's like dealing with the guilt a lot because even as this section ends, he's like devastated with himself, and that's why he
So
was
what is
trying not
this?
to kill her.
So is this gonna be like the propellant for his hero's journey kind of thing?
I would hope so. That's what I hope. Because then, like, honestly, even Sabine, like, is she fine? Is she not fine? They said that she's fine. Like, she's healing. I hope she dies too. I hope both the Fendirs, like, let's cut the Fendirs out. We're done.
Yeah,
You know
annihilate
what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly.
their line.
Um,
But yeah, anyway,
yeah,
I
I'm
don't know.
I'm down with that to be over. I don't think it is, unfortunately, but I don't know.
Yeah, so whatever. So Siggy's dead, apparently. Ethan's like, oh fuck, and they're all like, we gotta go. So they all like fucking dip. And I thought it was so funny, like the fucking I don't know, wherever they were, just like goes up in flames because the fucking sprites burnt the whole thing down.
Yeah, the whole meat market, and they were like, the Viper Queen is going to kill you.
Yeah, and so now they're gonna go travel to where like Lydia told them, like, oh, like meet me here, like if you believe me and like you want to save like Rune and whatever. So they go to like the ship because she like reached out to the Ocean Queen or some shit like that, whatever. Um, Now I guess you brought this up.
Yes. Okay. So this is all I could think about when I was reading it. They get to the boat, the whole crew, and Ethan panics because he's been panicking because he killed Siggy. And he's like, okay, I have to go. I really have to go. I have things to do elsewhere. Like, bye. And like runs away, like turns into a wolf. And they say like he disappeared over the hills and he's gone. Now,
Mm-hmm.
my point here is okay, the last time they were going to the Eternal City, Ethan was like, I got to go keep guard on that wolf mystic who ended up being Siggy. Now
Yeah,
this time he's like, I have to go fix what I did, which I don't even know what the fuck that means. She's decapitated.
yeah.
But to me, I'm like, you have now got out twice from going here. Like it just comes out like a cop out. Like
I didn't think of this.
I literally read it and he was like it was like literally so reminiscent and like parallel exactly to the first time he did this that I
Mm-hmm.
was like, bro, like you have to stop getting to wherever you're going or the night before the day of whatever and being like, I actually can't go. I have much more important things to do. I was like,
Yeah.
your friends are being tortured. Hello?
Mm-hmm.
I just
Yeah,
he's
I
like a
don't know.
pussy to me. Like I'm like, is it really that important? Like
So I wonder where he's gonna end up.
I don't know.
Because now the storyline, okay, so now there's like multiple directions because now they're not all together, and I'm sure they're gonna somehow get Hunt, Rune, and
Well,
Baxine out.
hopefully, yeah. I mean, hopefully, because now we've had like Lydia, Rune, and then like the little crew, like
Mm-hmm.
three plot points in Crescent City. You'd have to hope they all have one. I'd like to do like one Crescent City and then one Prithian. I don't need
Yeah.
as many Crescent City ones. I
Well,
want
let's
less.
let's hope they all come together. But
You'd have to think.
well, so Lydia's still trying to help Hunt, Rune, and Baxine escape,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, oh, Polix, like, let's give them like this antidote so their wings start growing back. So then that way we could torture them again with their wings or some shit like that. But really, she was doing that because she needs them to have wings to escape.
Yeah, that's
Um,
important.
which, okay, cool. And she's also recruiting the Sprite Queen to help,
Which I think is
which,
cute, but she's putting a lot
cool.
of faith in her for just like meeting her. Like she literally is like, okay, the cameras will be off here. You got to do this. You got to do that. And like she even makes a point. I think I forgot Paige, and she's like, this is all riding on her. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
girl, that is which again, she can't do
She's
anything.
desperate. Desperate time.
Yeah,
Because if anything were to happen, it'd fall on her, not Lydia.
right. That's what I'm saying. Like Lydia literally can't do anything.
Yeah.
So, oof, that's a lot to do. But I have faith in this Bright Queen. I feel like we're gonna free these people. I don't think any of them are gonna die.
No.
I feel good about it.
I think if anything, Baxian might die.
Which would make me sad, but I hope he dies. If he does die, I hope it's like his last words are like something about Danica, and they
Yeah.
can be together.
Like I feel like his character would be like the easiest to kill off. Like just tie
And
that
it would
up.
make me sad, but I would be like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like Rune and Hunt dying are unacceptable.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see. And so, oh boy. the I don't know. I'm like just thinking about where I think this is going and I'm not sure. Anyways,
Same.
um and so okay, now back to Bryce. Bryce is a fucking lunatic and she decides, "Oh, I'm going to let this creepy pale red-lipped bitch out of her coffin." And they like Azrael
For
and Nesta are,
answers.
yeah. And Azrael and Nesta are like, "No."
Yeah.
Like mind you, the Asteri is like cognizant, she's awake, and she can't get out of the courts. I would have been like, "See you later, sister." Like
Yeah.
no, I don't need. I mean, I get Bryce needs answers, but like, you can't figure something out. Like, you waited about 5 seconds and you were like, "This is the only way."
Like
Probably not.
they could have done something with Truth Teller.
Or anything. And so, Bryce, you're a fucking moron. And so she lets her out. Why? I don't know. Now we do find out some wild intel. We had discussed this with you guys before because we were just too eager. This is when we find out about the cauldron and the kill switch on all the worlds. So that's
Hmm.
crazy. I mean, the fact that they did this.
And the fact that she's just like openly like, yeah, I did this,
Right.
like whatever.
As they always do.
I mean, this is the thing, right? So like Bryce says in the book that the reason why she let her out is because she knew she was starved, right? So she couldn't like do anything.
Correct.
Which okay, in theory makes sense, but she's still like one of the most powerful beings,
Right. And now,
which,
okay,
ends up biting Bryce in the ass.
well, and here's my thing with that as well is that Bryce just took power out of the mountain to like, she even says, like, oh, now that Celine's power meshed with Helena's or Thea's, whatever power she has, she feels like she's a complete of power now. Like, she doesn't need to be charged up anymore. She feels like
Hmm.
she has her own power. So if you took power out of the mountain, do you not think the Asteri could do this as well? Which is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Um, so the Asteri starts just fucking having power, freaking
Yeah,
out,
she's
being a
like
creepy bitch.
siphoning.
Yeah. And Nesta and Azrael are absolutely livid. So Bryce, like, now that she's all these powers, she like summons the sword and truth teller to her. And she
From
stabs,
Az.
yes. And she stabs the Asteri with both. Now, the Asteri does begin to die when this happens. And then Azrael like puts like a choker on her neck or something, but like then she siphons the power off of that and like
Hmm.
dislodges the blades. Now I'm curious why those blades began to kill her, but then like I don't know, it's interesting how like even like that little bit of siphoning overtook them. And
Hmm.
then Nesta takes I forget how to say her sword's name, it means inner peace, whatever, however you say it.
Ataraxia.
Perfect. She takes ataraxia. Mind you, Nesta's sword, this entire section, whenever she uses it, she like wreaths it in silver flames.
Hmm.
Amazing. No notes, 10 out of
Yeah.
10. Um, Nesta then takes atar say it again for me.
Ataraxia.
Ataraxia, thank you. And stabs her. And in true fashion to many theories and speculations, the Asteria has black blood. Okay. And Nesta kills her with ataraxia. So now why did this work? Unsure. Um we know that like Nesta's sword also kills the unkillable, but like
Hmm.
an Asteri, that's like I mean only Apollion's killing an Asteri by
That's the
eating it.
thing. Nesta's like fucking. She kills the king of Highburn. Now she's killing Asteri. Like, what the fuck is next?
Yeah, so I mean amazing. She's iconic, but I'm like I want explanation for why that worked. There
Mm.
has to be. It can't just be like, "Oh, it worked." You know what I'm saying?
Well, she's Lady Death.
She is, but she gave that back.
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
And so that's why I'm also curious like a lot of this book when she has all these powers,
Oh.
I'm like,
Oh. Bring up a really good point. I didn't think
but
of
she
this.
did keep a little bit, extra. They were saying like in that book, Silver Flames, it was like, oh, she gave it back, but like Cassie made a comment like, oh, I still see a kernel in her. So maybe, I mean, even a little bit is probably pretty intense.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I want like an explanation. Like, what is the deal? Why was Nesta able to do this?
Yeah.
And so Bryce now with her newfound powers just is like, okay, well, I'm gonna go home.
Yeah, she's
And
like, see ya.
she opens a portal and jumps through it.
Gee, that was
And
easy.
that's how this ends. The section ends, and she's going back to Midgard apparently. Now, okay. I don't know how I feel about it being that easy. I guess it does make sense though, because if she has the horn, if she now has these new powers, and she doesn't need to charge, it
Yeah.
would be that easy, right?
Like if she's a descendant of Thea and Thea was able to do this, so yeah, like yeah, it makes
It makes
sense.
sense. Now, I guess this is how again the section ends. So as we conclude this episode, do we think she makes it back? We're saying, oh, it's so easy. Like, is it that easy? Does she end up in fucking Throne of Glass? Like, I have no idea. You know what I'm
Well, this
saying?
is like the thing. It's like I kind of almost don't want her to go back
Just
to
pop on
Midgard
back.
yet, Like I feel like
Well,
she
right.
has
Is
some
that
more
it?
journeying to do.
Right. Like,
So maybe
is
she
that
does
it?
end up with the Prince of Hell. Like I don't know. Like maybe she ends up in hell.
Right. Or if she goes back to Midgard, does she go back again? Like, that's my point. I guess if
Well,
she
she'd have to be in
does,
hiding for sure because
well,
she's on
yeah,
red
yeah.
alert. Like there's literally a ransom out for her.
Right. Okay. So I guess here's the point we're thinking, right? Um, yeah, where do we think this is going? Like, do I think she
Because
goes back? I don't know, but does she go back to Prithian ever in this book, or is that it? Is
I don't know.
that's it?
I don't know, but I feel like if she went back to Crescent City, like I think she would like severely fuck up everything that like
Is
Lydia's
going
trying to
down?
do.
Yeah,
Like she's gonna fuck everything up.
yeah.
Which
I
I
would.
mean,
I would.
honestly, might make the most sense because that's what Bryce does.
True. I also wouldn't mind if she went to hell and like kept adventuring while everyone else was doing their own thing. But I also don't want that to be the only Prithian crossover. That was not enough.
No, I mean, there's definitely more. I think because like I've seen spoilers and the
Okay, so
other
she.
characters are talked about more.
Okay, yeah, I want them to be more
Unless
like.
it's fake, I don't know. But I think she ends
Oh
up.
boy.
I think there's still more because like that's when like there has to be more about like her and Az being together or something like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I just didn't get enough. You know what I'm
and
saying?
I
So I'm
think there's like
hoping.
I think there was like talk of like a bonus chapter between like Az and Elaine
Okay.
that's like thrown in here somewhere.
Well, I know there's a bonus chapter for Az and Elaine after Silver Flames, but I don't think you ever read it. I can send it
Oh,
to you because there is one I read it after Silver Flames.
oh,
So it could be that one as well. I don't know.
maybe I don't know.
There's
I'm
a million
confused.
bonus chapters with this book, which I don't like. Like every store had a different one. I'm like, can you just write it in your book? Whatever.
I
That's
know
besides the
that was
point.
so annoying.
So yeah, I mean, I would love if honestly she jumped through the portal, and ended up like back at the townhouse, and is
Yeah,
like, fuck.
imagine.
Um, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if I think she gets back to Midgard. I'm not sure about that. I don't know where I think it's going. I would hope that Rune and all of them escape, and I would hope that if she does go back to Midgard, that we do have more crossover to come.
Yeah,
Especially if
I
it's this
mean,
easy, she has to go back and forth. Fine.
yeah, I think definitely the three of them are gonna escape somehow. I'm feeling like somebody's gonna die
I hope so.
for sure. It's got to be, and I think something's gonna happen with the Asteri.
Okay.
Also, we didn't mention this, but when she like lets the Asteri out, like she's talking to the Asteri, she says her name is like
Oh,
Art
Vesperus.
Vesperus or something,
And it's
and
similar to the other Asteria that's in her world.
she was like, "There is a Vesperus already."
Or they're like really close together. But I think it could just be like they're like siblings. You know what I'm saying? Like the Asteria, there seems like there's more of them than there's in Midgard. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
Um,
I felt like I like vividly remember like, oh, like did somebody lie and say they were her?
Hold on. I think her name was just similar to another one. Blank check for you. But yeah, and so I guess, well, what do you think of the book so far as I'm looking for this?
I mean, I think it's fine. Like I'm not like over the moon about it. Like I'm not like I can't put the book down. but
Right. It's like a fine intro so far, but usually her
yeah,
books take off to the second half, so I have hope. Like, yeah, I'm
exactly.
enjoying it, but I'm not like, oh my god, this is all I wanted and more.
Hmm. It's kind of hard because some, like you have to get through like the meat to get to
Mm-hmm.
dessert. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Like,
And I love my dessert.
yeah.
Okay, so her name is Vesperus, and she said, are you related to Hesperus? And then she said the evening star, and she goes, I am the evening star. And she was like, cool, I don't care who's the evening star. So
Yeah, so
I think that could just be like a
I thought
siblings quarrel. I don't know.
I don't know, I thought that was weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to even write it. Yeah, agreed. Um, yeah, I don't know. I want to get to dessert, ladies and gentlemen. And so this part was fine. I'm enjoying it. I really am. I
Like
don't
out of
have, I'm
5,
not,
I'd give it a 3.5, I think.
yeah. Like, I'm not like, oh my God, this let me down. And I'm also not like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so, yeah, so I feel like I'm excited for part two. That'll be our next episode coming out. I don't know the exact page numbers. We'll let you know at the start of next week's episode. But it will cover just the middle part of this book. So I'm excited to get to it. And it'll be same format. We're gonna read that, record before we finish the book.
Hmm.
So I'm excited. I'm ready for it.
Sick. Whoop whoop.
Can't wait. Yes, finally reading this book. And so we love you guys. We can't wait to talk more about this book with you. And we will see you next
Yes.
week.
We'll see you next week for episode 16, part
Whew,
2.
of this chonky,
Chonky boy.
chonky boy. All right. We
All
love
right.
you.
Bye.
Bye.